Good evening, everybody. I'm Cindy Williams. Welcome back to our election coverage.
And I'm Pat Callahan. We are here with you now live on the air throughout the evening as election results begin to come in. We have news center crews at campaign headquarters across the state. You'll also see a real-time ticker at the bottom of your screen, which will have updated race results. Now, too close to call at this point, the race for governor of Maine. Here are the latest results. With 2% of the vote in, Mike Michaud has a lead 49 to 43% over the incumbent Paul LePage. These numbers not particularly significant. We're seeing Elliott Cutler, the independent, at 8%.
We want to go to Caroline Cornish now, who is at Cutler headquarters with the candidate who seems to be having a pretty good time this evening, actually. Caroline?
He certainly is, Cindy. Elliott Cutler says in 2010 his big regret was not getting out and actually enjoying his own party. So he's come out and he's been talking to people all night, and he's here to talk to us now. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're very welcome. It's great to be here.
I'm hearing all these cameras clicking. Your supporters are very excited. How are you feeling today? Because it seemed like last week might have been a little bit of a tough week, but you seem very relaxed today.
No week in this entire campaign has been tough. Tonight's a celebration of democracy. Voters are having their say. It's the way it's supposed to be. I'm here with several hundred really, really wonderful people, good friends. I'm very happy.
One last question, because we're about to hit Shelley Pingree. Sorry, I got that in my ears so for the awkward pause. What do you think was the number one moment for you today as you were out talking to voters?
Oh, all the people, so many people who came up to me in Biddeford and South Portland and Cape Elizabeth and Lewiston and in Bangor, just to say that they weren't afraid, they were voting for me, and they were proud of it. And when I heard that from so many people, it made me feel proud too.
All right, thank you so much for being with us, Elliott. We're going to be hearing from you later on tonight.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank
and
you.
I understand that Congresswoman Shelley Pingree is about to speak to her supporters, so we're going to go back to you, Pat and Cindy.
All right, and we will send that to Portland now, where Shelley Pingree is speaking to her
and
supporters
also
at
to
the moment.
my
Let's
two
listen in.
opponents who kept this lively, and I really appreciate them being great opponents and also making sure I had the opportunity to win. So that's good. It's really an honor to serve as a member of Congress, and this will be my chance to start my fourth term, and so I'm very grateful to the voters who have let me serve the last 3 terms, and I am very happy, in spite of all we have to say about Congress, I am very happy to go back and serve the people of Maine for yet another term.
That is Congresswoman Shelley Pingree addressing her supporters in Portland tonight. She's cruising to an easy victory over a couple of political rookies, the Republican, a young man named Isaac Mishuk, and the independent Richard Murphy. Certainly not a surprise that Shelley Pingree prevails in that race. An unusual race in that she was so far ahead and had so much money at her disposal, she didn't have to spend any of that money. She bought exactly 1 television ad. I didn't see any signs for her anywhere. Some people, she said, were asking her, "Are you running?" In fact, she is running, and she has won. Susan Collins, it's the 4th time she has won election to the U.S. Senate from Maine, and she always faces formidable opposition. When she ran the first time, she had to beat Joe Brennan. When she ran for re-election, the first time was against Shelley Pingree. Second time was against Tom Allen, a member of Congress. This time, Shenna Bellows, who has not held office, but is highly regarded as the former head of the ACLU of Maine, who has been involved in a lot of political campaigns, such as the gay marriage fight, and she knows what she's talking about. She acquitted herself well, and Susan Collins doesn't take it for granted. However, she has reached that position in Maine politics where she is going to be very difficult to dislodge until she's ready to go. I want to take a look now at the numbers for governor. Here's the percentage that we have in so far. It's, again, a small percentage, just 12% of precincts reporting. Mike Michaud is up at 49%. The incumbent Republican Paul LePage at 43%, and Elliott Cutler is at 8%.
We want to check in with Paul LePage headquarters now. Rob Caldwell is the man who's staffing that for us this evening. Hi there, Rob. How's it going?
Hi, Pat and Cindy. Fairly quiet here so far, definitely an air of anticipation. One of the people from the campaign here for Paul LePage said that they are cautiously optimistic. You've heard that term before tonight, you'll hear it again tonight. That's the kind of thing you say when you're locked in a very, very tight race. How tight is it? Well, it's interesting. The people in the campaign who sometimes try to spin reporters have been pretty candid tonight. They've said to us, we don't know who's going to win. This one is really, really close, and they say they honestly don't know which way it's going to go. Let's talk a little bit about some other numbers. The money that has been spent in this race, the race for governor, by outside groups. 4 years ago, outside groups spent about $4 million in the race for governor. This year, they spent about $14 million. And just to give you some perspective of what kind of negative advertising that'll buy, the outside groups this year alone spent about $4.2 million against Paul LePage. They also spent about 2.1, roughly half that amount, in support of Paul LePage. Also a lot of money spent for Mike Michaud, $1.8 million against him and 3.1 for him. So again, $14 million spent by outside groups trying to influence the race for governor in Maine, compared to $4 million last time around. That just goes to show you that both the Republican parties, both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, thought they had a real shot at winning this race. They don't put that kind of money in unless a race is competitive, and they both think they can get it.
Welcome back to our News Center Voice of the Voter election night coverage.
Well, we're going to get to the bear baiting referendum now. It was the only referendum on the statewide ballot, and one that people were really passionate about. This referendum would ban the use of dogs, traps, and bait in hunting bear. The numbers right now still very close, 49% to 51%. It was really felt that this particular question was going to bring a lot of people to the polls, perhaps people who would not have voted otherwise. So how is that going to affect the other races? This is a big question in the 2nd District, where a lot of money is made on bear hunting. Of course, it could also affect the race for governor. We are still waiting to see the impact there.
News Center's Bill Green is at the No on One election headquarters in Orono. He's got a report for us now.
The polls are closed, the counting is going on. There is incidental evidence that this was an unusually large voter turnout for a non-presidential election. Now, many people think that's because of the bear baiting referendum question. And the No on One side, which would protect current bear hunting practices, thinks this will bode well for them. But no one is sure.
With all that work, and what the party said was so much dissatisfaction with Governor LePage, should you be farther ahead?
Well, I think it's difficult to break away in a three-way race.
We are looking at the Lewiston numbers right now, and the vote is final. 100% of the precincts reporting the marijuana referendum in Lewiston has failed. It will not be legal in that town for adults to possess even small amounts of marijuana.
And that's despite an effort by the supporters of legalized marijuana in Lewiston to get all of the Bates College students and other young people on board. It's a different story in South Portland, where despite strong opposition from the establishment, if you will, the city council, the chief of police, South Portland voters said yes to the idea of recreational marijuana, mostly a symbolic vote, of course, 52 to 48, but it does perhaps give those who support the idea something to build on as they look for a statewide referendum. News Center's Danielle Waugh is in South Portland with the supporters of legalized marijuana.
A lot of surprise to see that South Portland passed it, but again, it is such a close vote that it's hard to call it a big victory. Now, the group that's been leading the efforts for marijuana legalization, the Marijuana Policy Project, has made it known that they plan to make a statewide referendum in 2016. So we have to ask, if the results are so close in South Portland and a defeat in Lewiston, what that might mean for a statewide election in 2016.
In addition to all the top of the ticket races, every seat in the Maine legislature is up for grabs right now. Phil, what's your thought on how things are shaking out so far?
Well, there's 186 legislative seats between the House and the Senate. All indications are that the Republicans are likely to pick up at least 2 state Senate seats, maybe more, but that's premature, of course.
How many do they need to flip control?
They've got to get to 18, 17, so they've got to pick up 4 seats, I think.
Well, no, they've got, it's 19, 15, 1 right now, so they sort of got to pick up 3, but Bill Diamond's going to pick up a seat for sure, so that kind of gets Democrats to 20, so from that point they've got to pick up 3, and it's all I'm hearing, and you've seen it online and talking to folks who are back at the headquarters, that it's very tight, too close to call in terms of where the majority is going to be. Right. That means there's some races like out in Auburn. That's a very tight race right now that we're seeing with Senator John Cleveland against Eric Brakey. That's one we're taking a look very closely to see what's going on right near here in Scarborough.
Astounding amounts of money being spent on those races as well. In Scarborough, in Bangor, they've gotten pretty ugly.
It's tremendous the amount of money that has been spent on state Senate races by outside groups and overwhelmingly to help the Democrats.
Yeah. When it comes to funding the gubernatorial candidates, thousands of contributors in and outside the state have written checks for incumbent Governor Paul LePage, Democratic candidate Mike Michaud, and independent candidate Elliott Cutler.
We wanted to share some campaign contribution totals from the gubernatorial candidates. This is from a website called followthemoney.org. The website collects spending reports from hundreds of different candidates all over the country for every level of office.
According to followthemoney.org, Governor LePage has had a total of 7,795 contributors, totaling an estimated $3.09 million. His top contributors, LePage himself, has given close to $250,000 to his own campaign. Ann LePage, the governor's wife, has given $20,000. Other top contributors include Cheryl and Richard Bolduc, Pembroke Schaefer, and Zareen Mirza. Zareen Mirza is the granddaughter of the first president of Pakistan.
Mike Michaud has had a total of 14,661 contributors, totaling $4.35 million.
Our Voice of the Voter 2014 election coverage continues as we hit 11 o'clock. Good evening. I'm Pat Callahan.
And I'm Cindy Williams. We have team coverage of all of the major races. We've got people all over the state tonight.
The race for governor highlights our election night. Rob Caldwell is with Governor LePage campaign at the Franco-American Center in Lewiston. Don Carrigan is with the Mike Michaud campaign at Port City Music Hall in Portland. News Center's Caroline Cornish is with Elliott Cutler's supporters at the Portland Ocean Gateway. Before we hear from them, let's take a look at the latest numbers in the race for governor. 40% of the vote is counted. The trend right now is probably pretty pleasing to Republicans. Paul LePage up almost 47% to just about 45% for Democrat Mike Michaud. Elliott Cutler has already conceded from this race.
Rob Caldwell is live at LePage headquarters in Lewiston tonight. What's the feeling there, Rob?
Well, the numbers just went up on the screen, or people are watching our station, and there was a whoop here because people are pleased with the numbers right now as they're going. I've been talking to advisors of Governor LePage's. They have only had more and more confidence as the evening has gone on. They feel really good about the numbers.
Just want to make sure I get the announcement out to everybody, is that we're in the lead by 3 points with 42% of the precincts in. It's going to be a long night. So anybody who wants to go home and get a good night's sleep, I encourage them to do that and make sure you drive very slowly. We'll come back out in a little while. Thanks a bunch. Thanks.
Well, that was Bruce Poliquin in his bid to become the first Republican to hold the 2nd Congressional District seat in 2 decades.
But we are ready to project. News Center projects that the Republican incumbent Paul LePage will win re-election to a second 4-year term.
Rob Caldwell is at LePage headquarters. He's been there all night. Rob, what is the mood in the room right now? I assume they're hopping.
And they are happy. There have been a lot of smiles around here all night. You know, you can read the attitude. You can read a room pretty quickly, and you've covered a few elections, and this crowd has been up all night long. Now, sometimes crowds are up, and their exuberance is not justified. But right now, the trend is looking very favorable for Paul LePage. It starts to get very difficult to figure out how this might turn around for Mike Michaud. About 10 minutes ago, one of the advisors to Governor LePage came down and he said, "Tell your producers to call the Michaud campaign and tell him to concede, and then Paul LePage will come down here and give a victory speech."
Including my brothers and sisters in the labor
movement.
movement.
Well, there's the scene, a quiet group listening to Mike Michaud concede this election, and you can see on the other side of your screen, Governor Paul LePage. He's just been reelected to a second 4-year term. That's where the party is happening, and he's about to take the stage finally. His supporters have been waiting all night to hear from him, but he said he would not come down until this election was clear. Some may be surprised that he didn't wait for Mike Michaud to finish his concession speech. We'll probably hear about that. But the fact is, to the victor go the spoils, and he and his people are ready to celebrate here.
That live in this state. Never give up. Keep on fighting to make sure that they're treated fairly, that they have an opportunity here in the state where people can get out of poverty and work their way into the middle class. I also want to thank my 2 opponents. Before coming on stage, I did try to call Governor LePage.
Governor Paul LePage is about to speak. So let's shift our attention and listen to what he has to say.
Thank you for trusting in our mission.